The first thing Caleb Mercer noticed was that the woman never stepped into the firelight. She stopped at its edge, one boot planted in the dust, one hand wrapped around a worn carpet bag. The flames painted the hem of her dress gold, but she stayed in the darkness as if waiting for judgment. Caleb's fingers tightened around the rifle resting across his knees. Out on the Wyoming Trail, strangers after sunset usually brought trouble, yet this woman carried no weapon, no horse, no demands. Only exhaustion pressed into the lines around her mouth. She cleared her throat. "May I warm up by your fire?" Her voice barely rose above the wind. "If only until morning." The crackling mesquite answered before Caleb did. If you've ever wondered how quickly one small choice can change the course of a life, stay with this story, because neither of them knew that a simple invitation would follow them farther than the cattle trail ahead. Caleb studied her. Dust coated her boots. The sleeves of her faded blue dress had been mended more than once. Strands of chestnut hair escaped from loose pins around her face. She stood straight despite the trembling in her fingers. He lowered the rifle. "Coffee's hot," he said. "You can sit." The woman released a slow breath. "Thank you." She stepped into the circle of light. Caleb poured coffee into his spare tin cup. He set it beside the fire rather than handing it to her. Giving space mattered, especially to people who looked ready to bolt at the slightest movement. She lowered herself onto a log. Both hands wrapped around the cup. Steam drifted upward. For several minutes, neither spoke. The cattle shifted nearby. Leather creaked. The prairie wind whispered through dry grass. Finally, Caleb glanced toward her. "You got a name?" She stared into the coffee. "Clara Bennett." He nodded once. "Caleb Mercer." Silence returned. Comfortable for him, less so for her. The fire popped. Clara startled, then gave herself a small shake. "You don't ask questions," she asked. "I ask useful ones." The corner of her mouth twitched. "You don't know if I'm dangerous." Caleb looked toward the herd. "If you meant harm, you would have walked closer before asking." Clara lowered her eyes. The flames reflected there. "I suppose that's fair." Morning arrived cold and gray. Caleb woke to the smell of coffee. He blinked. Clara knelt beside the fire, using his battered pot. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "You shared your fire." She handed him a cup. "You looked like someone who drinks coffee before speaking." Caleb accepted it. The first sip stopped him. Strong, exactly how he liked it. He glanced toward her. "You from around here?" "No." She folded her hands. "I was supposed to marry." The words came quietly. "My father owed money." The wind shifted. The groom's family wanted more than we could provide. She stared at the fire. The wedding ended before it began. Caleb waited. "The boarding house sent me away." Clara swallowed. "I walked." The cattle lowed nearby. Caleb watched them for a long moment, then looked back at her. "I'm driving 80 head north." She blinked. "What?" "Need another hand. Charity." "Good." He stood. "I don't offer it." Her chin lifted. "What would I earn?" $1 a day. "Meals?" "Included." "What if I fail? You go your own way." Clara stared at him. The morning light caught the pale line where a ring once rested on her finger. "You don't know anything about me." Caleb adjusted his saddle. "I know you asked instead of taking." He glanced toward the herd. "And I know work tells the truth faster than conversation." The corners of Clara's eyes tightened. "Fair enough." He handed her a set of reins. "Can you ride?" A small spark appeared beneath her tired expression. "I grew up on a farm." "Then mount up." The borrowed mare shifted beneath Clara. Her back straightened. The uncertain woman from the firelight faded. Another version emerged. Steady, watchful, capable. Caleb pointed toward the left flank. "Old red cow drifts." "I see her. Cattle notice nerves." "Then I'd better stop feeling nervous." The answer surprised him. It surprised her too. For the first time since arriving, Clara almost smiled. The herd moved north beneath a rising sun. Dust climbed into the bright Wyoming sky. Hooves drummed against hard earth. Clara guided the mare into position. The red cow drifted. She nudged forward. Cut it off neatly. No hesitation. Caleb watched. Interesting. By noon, sweat darkened Clara's collar. Her hands reddened against the reins. But she never complained. When the cattle finally rested near a patch of shade, Caleb offered her water. She accepted it. "You've done this before," he said. "Not exactly." She wiped dust from her face. But hard work doesn't change much. The breeze lifted loose strands of hair around her cheeks. Clara looked across the endless prairie. "I thought my life ended 3 weeks ago." The herd shifted nearby. Dust rolled through sunlight. Caleb followed her gaze. "Looks like it kept going." Clara's fingers tightened around the canteen. Then she looked toward the horizon, toward whatever waited ahead. "Maybe," she whispered. For the first time in many miles, she sounded like someone willing to find out. By the third morning, Clara's hands had split open. The reins rubbed against raw skin. Every turn of the saddle sent fresh aches through her back. Still, when Caleb rose before dawn and reached for the coffee pot, she was already feeding kindling beneath the fire. "You should rest," he said. "You hired a hand," Clara replied. "Not a guest." He hid whatever response came to mind behind his tin cup. If this story has ever reminded you of someone who kept showing up long after life gave them reasons to quit, keep them close in your thoughts tonight. Sometimes endurance speaks louder than promises. The cattle moved through narrow country that afternoon. Dry creek beds, cottonwood shadows, steep banks where one wrong step could scatter the herd. Caleb rode ahead. Clara stayed left. The rhythm between them had begun to settle. He pointed. She understood. He paused. She adjusted. Words became less necessary. The trouble started near sunset. A distressed bawling rose from the rear of the herd, different from the others. Sharp, urgent. Caleb turned dust around immediately. Clara followed. A young heifer stood apart from the cattle. She paced in circles. Her sides trembled. At her feet lay a newborn calf. The tiny body barely moved. The membrane still clung to its face. The calf's ribs fluttered weakly. Caleb dismounted. He knelt, pressed rough fingers against its neck, then stood. "We keep moving." Clara stared at him. "What? It won't last." His voice stayed level. "We lose calves sometimes." The heifer let out another broken call. The calf twitched. One thin leg kicked once. "No," Clara said. Caleb looked toward her. "We've got miles before camp." I said no. The words surprised them both. Clara slid from the saddle. Her legs buckled before finding strength again. She crouched beside the calf. The tiny body felt heavier than expected. Warm, fragile, alive. "I'm carrying it." "You'll collapse. Then I'll collapse later." The afternoon sun burned overhead. Dust clung to Clara's skin. She wrapped her shawl around the calf and tied the bundle against her chest. Its heartbeat fluttered beneath her palms. Fast, uncertain. Caleb studied her. "You understand what you're choosing?" Clara adjusted the knot. "I wasn't given many chances." She lifted the calf. "I'm not wasting this one's." The first 100 yards stole her breath. The second set her shoulders on fire. By the half-mile mark, sweat soaked her dress. The calf shifted weakly. Its small head pressed beneath her chin. Caleb rode beside her, silent. He never offered to take the burden. He never told her to stop. He simply matched her pace. The heifer followed, never straying far. Dust coated Clara's lips. Each step became its own decision. Keep moving, keep breathing, keep carrying. At 1 mile, her arms shook. At another, she stumbled. A steady hand caught her elbow. "Caleb," only for a moment. Then he stepped away. "Camp's close," he said. "You can do it. No praise, no pity, just certainty." Clara tightened her hold on the calf. She walked. The campfire appeared like a miracle against the growing dusk. She lowered herself beneath a mesquite tree, carefully placed the calf onto the earth. The heifer rushed forward, licked the tiny body, pushed, nudged. The calf's head lifted, its legs folded beneath it, collapsed, then tried again. Dust rose beneath trembling knees. The third attempt held. The calf stood, wobbling, shaking, alive. Clara sat heavily in the dirt. Blood stained the cracked skin across her palms. Her arms hung useless at her sides. The calf found its mother's milk. Caleb removed strips of jerky from his saddlebag. He crossed the camp, placed the larger portion beside Clara. He started walking away. "You gave me more." Caleb paused. "You worked harder." He didn't turn around. Darkness settled slowly. Stars brightened overhead. Coyotes called somewhere far across the prairie. Clara cleaned her torn hands beside the fire. A shadow fell across her lap. She looked up. Caleb held out a small tin. "What is it?" "Salve," she hesitated. "You use it. I've got another." Clara accepted the tin. Their fingers brushed. Calluses against calluses. Both drew back too quickly. Neither mentioned it. The calf slept near its mother. The herd settled. Flames danced between them. Finally, Caleb spoke. "My wife died 3 winters ago." Clara froze. He stared into the fire. The baby didn't survive. The crackle of mesquite filled the silence. "I buried them beneath a cottonwood." His jaw tightened once, then again. "I stopped talking after that." Clara looked at the man across the flames, at the steady hands wrapped around a coffee cup, at shoulders carrying burdens no saddle could ease. She searched for comforting words, found none. Instead, she moved the coffee pot closer to him. The gesture was small, almost invisible. Caleb noticed. He poured another cup. Steam drifted into the night. The fire painted gold across tired faces. Neither looked away. And somewhere beyond the sleeping cattle, beneath a sky crowded with stars, 2 people who had spent years learning how to survive alone discovered the quiet weight of simply staying. Neither understood what that would cost. Neither understood what it might heal. But for the first time in a very long while, neither reached for distance. The storm arrived without rain. Clara woke before dawn to a strange pressure in the air. The cattle were already standing. 80 heads lifted toward the dark horizon. No grazing, no restless shifting, only stillness. Lightning flashed. White branches stretched across the sky. No thunder followed. Caleb sat upright beside the dead fire. "Get your horse." The urgency in his voice erased sleep. Clara pulled on her boots. The mare danced against its tether. Dust rolled beneath nervous hooves. Another flash split the darkness. Closer this time. The smell came next. Sharp, metallic, like scorched earth waiting to happen. The cattle bolted. The ground shook beneath them. Caleb swung into the saddle. "Keep them together." Then he disappeared into chaos. Clara kicked her mare forward. Dust swallowed everything. Horns crashed through darkness. Bellowing, tore through the night. She chased shadows between bursts of lightning. One cow veered away. Clara pushed hard, cut it back. Another split from the herd. She followed. Fear showed itself through shaking fingers and aching lungs, but she kept riding. The mare stumbled, recovered, kept moving. Lightning lit the prairie bright as noon, then vanished, again and again. Hours blurred together. Dust coated Clara's teeth. Her thighs burned. The muscles in her hands cramped around the reins. She never stopped. 'Cause somewhere out there, Caleb was still riding. Dawn finally broke. Gray light revealed the damage. Scattered cattle stretched across the plains. Some alone, some grouped together. Caleb appeared through the haze. Dust stood beneath him. Foam covered the gelding's neck. They gathered what they could. Slowly, patiently. When the counting ended, Caleb stared at the herd. 73. Clara swallowed. 7 gone. The numbers hung heavily between them. 7 lost. 73 saved. Caleb slid from the saddle for her. The first time since Clara met him, his shoulders sagged. That money was winter feed. His voice sounded distant. Roof, repairs, seed. Clara climbed down carefully. Her legs threatened to give way. Instead, she crossed the space between them. We saved 73. Caleb looked away. We still lost 7, I know. She rested a hand against Dust's saddle. But 73 are standing because we stayed. The wind lifted loose strands of hair around her face. We rode through darkness. We didn't quit. Caleb finally looked at her. You could have left. Left? What? During the storm. His eyes carried questions he hadn't asked before. You had wages coming. You knew the way south. You could have gone. Clara stared at him. You think I would have left? I think people usually do. Silence settled, not empty. Wounded, the prairie stretched endlessly behind them. Clara stepped closer. I stayed. The words came quietly. But you're still asking why. Caleb's jaw tightened. Why? Clara looked toward the scattered cattle, then back at him. Because this stopped being your herd. She took a slow breath. It became ours. The morning wind carried the answer away. Neither spoke again. 3 days later, haze appeared on the horizon. Smoke drifted above the rail station. Buildings rose from the plains. The smell of coal replaced sagebrush. Men counted cattle. Pencils scratched ledgers. Buyers argued prices. Caleb argued back, steady, measured. When business ended, he approached Clara carrying folded bills. $38. She stared at the money, more than she'd ever held. You earned every cent. Clara accepted it carefully. The weight felt strange. What now? Caleb asked. She looked up. What do you mean? You've got choices. He studied the ground. Train east. New town. Fresh start. His throat moved. My ranch sits 2 days south. He paused. I need help. He finally met her eyes. Small place, separate cabin. More work than one person should handle. Clara waited. I can't offer much. You'd have winters with long silence. You'd be far from everything. The station noise faded around them. Steam hissed nearby. People hurried past. Caleb shifted uneasily. If you wanted the job, Clara didn't hesitate. Yes. He blinked. What? I'll take it. You haven't seen the place. I don't need to. The corners of his mouth softened. Just slightly. You sure? Clara looked at the man who had offered fair work instead of pity. Who spoke little but noticed everything. Who placed salve beside cracked hands. Who remembered coffee exactly how she liked it. Who carried grief without making it someone else's burden. I'm sure. Caleb drew a slow breath, then nodded, all right. The words almost disappeared beneath the station noise. Then let's go home. Clara's eyes burned. Home, not charity, not obligation. A place earned through work, through storms, through choosing to remain when leaving would have been easier. They rode south beneath a painted sunset. 2 figures crossing open country. The trail behind them long and difficult. The trail ahead uncertain. As darkness settled over the Wyoming plains, Clara glanced toward Caleb. He looked toward the distant horizon. Toward fences waiting to be mended. Toward winter. Toward possibility. Neither reached for the other. Not yet. But their horses moved side by side beneath the first evening stars. And for the first time in years, neither rode toward loneliness. If this journey touched your heart, share where you're listening from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us around the next campfire.